Planning and Zoning. Tammy, can you call roll?
Dr. Miller,
Here.
Miss Lindsay,
Here.
Mr. Kerrigan,
Here.
Ms. Ward, Mr. Linderman,
Here.
Mr. Saunders.
Here.
Okay, the minutes, has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting? Any additions, corrections? Okay,
Make a
somebody,
motion, we accept the minutes.
Second.
okay. I think we can do that by just saying all of, I can't speak today. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda, we have ordinance 785. Okay, and this is,
I can give you a little explanation of what it is if you'd like.
sure,
What it is, as you may or may not be aware, the city of Mexico Beach is in the process of annexing the 25 acres, I believe,
Directly behind us.
right behind us, and with the plan to have the city complex and everything on it. As part of the annexation from Bay County to Mexico Beach, we have to bring it in with a specific zoning
right,
category, and that's what 785 is. It's bringing it from agricultural timberland, Bay County, to public institutional here in Mexico Beach.
okay.
And so
So,
the city council is looking for you to look at this and give a recommendation, what you think about it, whether you think it's good, bad. That's basically what
okay,
this is.
so we'll open the public hearing on this. Is there anyone that wants to speak to the issue? Did everybody hear that and understand what this is annexation of property that belongs, I believe, to St. Joe Company? Is that right?
City
No, it's,
City purchase for St. Joe Company, but it's in Bay County. It
Bay
needs to
County.
be brought
Okay.
into the city of Mexico Beach. This part of it here is just simply changing the zoning from Bay County agricultural to Mexico Beach public institution.
okay, so,
I have a question.
well,
Public first.
let's do the public discussion
Okay.
first, and then we'll,
Okay.
is there anybody from the public that wishes to comment or speak to this issue?
What does public institution mean? Like, what kind of facility is that?
It's for the governmental complex, you know, city hall, fire, police,
Okay.
stuff along those lines. I think there's some more things that you can.
Parks.
But that's generally what it is.
Thank you.
I got a quick one.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public meeting. Now we'll open it up for discussion among board members.
I'm just curious, I mean, if it comes in as health, I mean, institutional, that means we can go back and subdivide into what is the need for the community? It says institutional, it sounds,
Well, we can look right here really quickly, but what is public institution?
It was also purchased from the St. Joe Company with understanding that it was going to be municipal complex.
should be
Educational,
used for what?
Municipal complex.
Oh, okay, all right, well, that's my.
yeah, it's basically a governmental type
Okay.
thing, but you can't have, you know, it can be a church, it can be a preschool, it can be residential care facility, stuff like that.
Okay, he answered my.
I misspoke a little bit. We didn't purchase it. It was gifted to us with the understanding it would be for a municipal complex underneath that zoning coordination.
Okay.
So this is something that, let's just reach out there. If we wanted to make us it didn't take the whole 25 acres for us to have our city departments. Could we build a, like a main street that has shopping and stuff on this or not?
No,
No,
not under the categories that it said,
okay.
or that we're trying to put it in.
Okay.
Question.
Is there any other?
Yeah,
This is on the list of these.
are there other properties that, in Mexico Beach that currently have this institutional zoning? For example, is this where we sit now?
Yes, sir, correct. This complex is one of them. If you see the map behind you, it says it's in blue. The items that are in blue, not the golf, but the blue. The other one over there in the middle was where the fire station, police station used to be. We're gonna relocate that. We're in the process of relocating that.
This is also the property where the tower is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
correct?
The 800 megahertz tower the county paid for is on that property.
Okay.
And we still have to, once we get through this process and it gets the first reading in front of the city council, then we have to send it up to the Department of Economic Opportunity and about 6 other different state agencies to get their approval before we can.
Okay, so then anybody else on the board have any comments or questions? Okay, and so you're looking for a recommendation from us to say, yes, we think this is a good idea, is that,
Yes.
okay? So, somebody wanna,
I recommend that we move ahead with that plan,
Ordinance 75.
785.
do we have a second? I'll second. Okay. All in favor of that? Oh, you have to call a vote? Go ahead.
Dr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay,
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Mr. Saunders.
Yes.
Okay. Moving right along. All right, next on the agenda is developmental order for property on 15th Street. This is to develop 38 residential lots in this subdivision. So we'll open the public discussion at this time.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would you like to bring up staff, any recommendations or questions prior to that discussion?
Hold on. Actually, I believe there are some typographical errors. In the information we got from our EPCI, this says in the brief summary that it is future multifamily homes and eventually to build condominiums on the site. I don't think that's correct.
Are we talking about the,
This is parcel 04175. Yeah.
010?
Okay, okay, everybody got that one? And you see down here, under brief summary, it says future multifamily homes. Under background, it says to build condominiums on this site. I do not think that information is correct. I think this-
You're correct. That is a mistype there from something that got put in on that page. Development order. James, you're from EPCI. Please come forward, please. Have you corrected one of those? This is what was put in the file, though.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So can you explain what this project coming forward is and the corrected? that needs to
It's
be on the
for
staff
the single
recommendation?
families. It would be a PUD, but they're gonna have a condo association attached to it. And I think that's where the typo come from.
It's not a PUD, it's a development order.
Yeah, it's a development order that would be a PUD because there's some things that wouldn't actually meet for the lot sizes, things like that, but because it is the type zoning that it has, it's allowed to go forward with board approval.
So with that, we also have the developer here as well, that you bring to life for the update for the project. If you'd like to hear more for that. It is a single-family residence, not a condo association.
Could I just clarify this real quick? I believe this is single family, and because they're going to have an HOA,
Yes.
it's not a PUD, it'll have an HOA, and there are some general rules on lot sizes and setbacks that are different than the normal development. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say the biggest thing that talks about is, would be lot sizes. And the lot sizes, if I remember correctly on the map, was just slightly smaller than what a lot size would be for that particular zoning. But when you take the whole parcel as a whole, it meets those requirements, and it's allowed to go forward as that, as long as there's a property owners association, a condo, an HOA, whatever.
But I believe the other exception was there is according to this document, there's a rear setback of 7.5 feet versus 10 feet, which is the normal low density residential setback, correct?
Yes.
So you're changing this to 7.5 feet?
No, sir, when you get into the requirements on section 3 of the LDR, it talks about what's required, and then the setbacks are referenced in sentence 1 of the section 3, that it talks about setbacks that are required to roads and infrastructure and things like that, as opposed to is if this was a single family lot wherever that would be required on the density. So like if you wanted to build a condo or they were saying townhouses that was going to go in, well obviously the side setbacks wouldn't apply.
Can I clarify something real quick? We are talking about the development on 15th Street, just past the bridge across from the Casuna subdivision. We're not talking about the condos at 932 15th
That's correct.
Street. Okay.
Okay, so,
Let me ask them, the setbacks that are here are correct. They didn't look right to me, so.
Well, the setbacks are not addressed when you go into chapter 1, except setbacks to, like, say, roads and things like that.
okay, so this is to be the public part of the meeting. So are there members of the public that would like to speak?
We also have the developer here, Mr. Brad is here. He's ready to speak. I'd like to hear him about his development and his vision.
So do that before the public.
Okay,
And he can answer any questions.
Actually, the engineer for the developer. The developer couldn't make it. But yeah, I mean, it's 38 lots, single family residential. I believe all the setbacks are correct. There is a page, I've got it right here. It's sheet C04, and there's a little exhibit at the bottom right that shows 7.5 foot side, 10 foot rear, 20 foot front setbacks for each individual lot. And as far as everything else goes, stormwater was designed for Mexico Beach and the DEP codes. The wetland impacts are being addressed with Northwest Florida and DEP right now.
yeah. What page is it here? And we'll.
So on C4, C04.
Yes, ma'am. C04.
All right, here's the page. So if you want to come up,
Oh, you can pass this around. I didn't know she was speaking. Take a look.
have that, have a look, pass it around. Everybody can look at it. Okay. Is there anybody else from the public? Yes, ma'am. Hold on just a second.
So we can have the engineer hang back for any questions we may have.
All right.
Yeah, so
Lisa Logan, Maryland. I'm going to come over here to this map because I want to point out some things that I want y'all to consider. Y'all can see this better than the audience. Here's 15th Street right here. We're talking about this tract of land here on the corner at the curve. Here's the Catholic Church property. Here is Casuna. Here's Ocean Plantation. What we are looking at is a train that is out of control as far as developments, particularly along 15th Street right at this time, that we need to slow down and see how this works in an overall development plan. You've got this section here that's up tonight. This curve is one of the most dangerous places in town. We all know that. There's no pedestrian walkway yet. We're working on it, but we've been working on it for years. You've got Hackney Drive coming out. You've got all of the traffic that uses 15th going this way from Maryland. All of this, they often use that going out to 98. So you've got all that traffic. You've got Mexico Beach RV Resort that comes and uses that a lot. You've got the other 15th Street thing that's on there tonight. You've got a development that's been approved here. You've got the condos here. You've got Sea Pines, the Palms. They all use this. You've got most of Casuna has been built out. You've got Ocean Plantation has to come right here and use this curve. That's mostly rentals in there. So in the summertime, it's jam-packed. You've got Joe Road, which is going to be the primary, the only road into the 25 acres. That's the city municipal complex, all clustered right here where this development wants to go. You come on down 15th Street, just a very short distance, you have Centennial Bank on the corner that comes in and out right there. You have Chuck's Motel, which is what Gulfview Motel, that's coming online shortly. His parking has been changed from parking on 98 to parking on 15th Street, so that he has all of his customers backing in and out on 15th Street with the bank coming in. You've got left turn and right turn on 15th and all of this traffic. So you already have a monumental traffic problem here. So we need to slow this down and get us an overall development plan that deals with traffic flow and pedestrian flow before we allow all of this to be built and we're just sitting here twiddling our thumbs. Because this curve is going to be even more dangerous than it already is. So you've got to think about this. And this was also mentioned as part of the big section, including this section, that was supposed to play a monumental part in our revised stormwater plan. And if this is built on, well, you can kiss that goodbye. So there's a whole lot more to think about than just, okay, let's develop this. And I want everybody to be aware of that.
Okay. Chandler?
Okay.
Oh, just a second. Chandler was up.
I'm Chandler Touchton. I'm 106 St. Charles Street, which is in Casuna subdivision. And I want to talk for a minute about the importance of a wetland and then what that has done or saved us from in Casuna during Hurricane Michael. There's a lot of things about wetlands that are important. They're a carbon sink, which means that they save the plants take the carbon, give off oxygen, so it helps with the CO2. They're great for biodiversity. You have different plants and animals that live there. Also, again, helping with flooding and storm surge, helping with filtration to get out particulates and other things like that. The main one that I'm concerned about is the ability to store water and to help with flooding and storm surge. If you go back to Hurricane Michael and you look at what happened to the houses to the left and to the right of Casuna Casuna subdivision, you can see to the left, going down Hatley, the houses were floating. Going down across the road, across 15th to Sleepy Hollow, there was a wave of water that was several feet high that went through those houses. Around the curve that she was mentioning, everything to the ocean, water all the way through the first floor. In our subdivision, I think my house had the most water, which was 19 inches in the garage, nothing in the house. The water went from one way to the other, and the water that would have come to us was in this area that he wants to develop. So I'd like for you to please think about, we need the wetland badly, and it's gonna help when Casuna gets filled out. That's 75 lots, that's 75 homes that the water's gonna come straight down if we put asphalt and other impervious things in, and we don't have any room for that. The other question that I have that I would like to find out about is the wetland mitigation and the mitigation banks, okay? To me, if you say, okay, you're gonna restore a wetland for every acre that you take, you're gonna restore, okay? Is that wetland adjacent to this area? Is it going to help this area? Is it even in Mexico Beach or Bay County? Or is it somewhere in Central Florida or somewhere else where this developer has land? Is that going to help us? We're talking about we need water retention, we need flood control. We need to think about if we have another storm like Hurricane Michael. And if wetland mitigation means that they're going to put a wetland in Timbuktu, that doesn't help our city at all. And that's all I want to say.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Ralph Cruz, Colorado. I just wanted to second what Lisa said. That's what I was coming up here to talk about. I looked at the plans, and it's kind of a stupid design to have the road come out right where the turn is. I mean, that's poor planning right there. The road should be at the other end where 15th Street is straight, to say the least. And, I mean, that's a dangerous curve right there. There's no sidewalk, there's nothing, and the habit coming out right across from Joe. I just walked down there before I came up here. That side of the road must drop down 7-8 feet. There's no way you're going to put a road coming out on a turn. That's just a stupid design.
You know, one other thing that wasn't mentioned, I'll throw this out, is remember, 15th Street is the golf cart road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that muddies the water in terms of traffic as well. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm also a little concerned about the sewer and whether we have
Capacity.
Yeah, because I've heard in 2 meetings now that we were at capacity or we had to get more capacity before we could start building out instead of just building back. We're building out here.
Is there anybody else?
Now, the houses that they're talking about single, not condos that's going to be 2 stories high. If they fill in that dirt to build that wetland, if it's approved, if it's wetland, and they bring in that dirt and they have 2-story houses looking over our street on Hatley, the flooding and everything, that we got people looking down at us. We're single family. It needs to stick with single if it happens.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Lee LZ 1004 Cypress Lane. Speaking on behalf of my family that owns almost 5 acres right off of 15th Street. I don't know what that property is currently zoned. The rest of that was being pointed out in yellow, all of those there is commercial property. Totally different rules, etc. with things. I'm very in favor of the landowner being able to use his property for what is currently in the LGR. Very in favor of that, pro that. And one comment about Casuna. I do own property in Casuna. If you go back and look at the earlier wetlands map, almost all of Casuna was wetlands at one time, and it's been built in for Casuna.
Okay. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to speak? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and I'll open up the comments from the board. One thing I would like to point out before we go further is if you look at the second page of this, it is incomplete. We do not have filled in the building height that's expected here, the flood zone, and as I understand it, the property is in the flood zone. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe there is a flood zone. That's okay.
So, there are a couple, there's a myriad of issues with that. It's in the flood zone, and I believe that you intend to put some fill in there. that correct?
We would be putting fill in the property.
That's not allowed in the flood zone. You aware of that?
Okay.
So that's a problem. Now, anybody else here?
Well, I think this first page is very confusing when it says multifamily, and then it says condominium. I mean, the condominium really like threw me because we're looking at two different packets here. And,
That wasn't here on staff's part. That was just, it's obviously a single-family home, so I apologize.
okay, and what about is it gonna be two-story homes? Exactly what do y'all plan?
I can't answer that. I'm not the developer. I don't know exactly what he will put whatever is allowed for the code as far as square footage goes.
What was determined on the setbacks? Were these correct or incorrect? We have
I don't know what's on that sheet. 7.5.
What we have is front 20 feet, left 7.5 feet, right 10 feet, and rear 7.5 feet.
The rear would be 10. The front, I think it was 20, maybe 25. Okay, and then the sides are 7.5.
The rear is what?
10 feet.
I need to point out something else. According to, there are a lot of things missing in what you presented to us. We're supposed to have, when it comes to this board, we're supposed to have a certificate of concurrency that shows that someone has looked at what the sewer, water requirements are going to be, and all of those types of things. This application does not have that certificate of concurrency. In addition to that, the site plan does not show sidewalks, and this is clearly required for any development on 15th Street to put sidewalks. Everybody knows we're going to need sidewalks on 15th Street. You know, and so we're trying to get there right now, but we can't approve development that doesn't have the sidewalks included. There's no sidewalks anywhere.
Just one other question. So this is a commercial development order. The property is zoned residential, correct?
That is also, it's residential, single-family homes. This was,
Of that part.
I told you about that page was inappropriately marked. They had confused it with one that was not on this agenda. That was just incorrect in the staff. It is 100% residential, single-family. And it's zoned for low-density residential yellow.
Okay, so you can find requirements on sidewalks in the LDR 3.02.000.
Are you at a point where you would have shown sidewalks on this?
No. We didn't get any comments back from staff. So.
Is that something that you can make?
Yeah, obviously we throw sidewalks in there. That's not a big deal. If that's what's required, then yes.
So you can make recommendations, ma'am. What you're going to be doing is making recommendations. So if you vote to deny it because it doesn't have certain things, or if you want to vote to approve it because with addition of certain things, those are at your prerogative, ma'am.
Well, I'm having a real problem because we don't have a certificate of concurrency. There's a lot of things missing in what material we were given. So, you know, we need to address these issues. And so, you know, again, we're in the floodplain. That's not been lined out here, but we're in the floodplain in this situation. So the floodplain does not allow for fill.
I mean, it says right in this form, incomplete submittals will not be reviewed, and it seems that it's incomplete and there are errors, and that should be corrected
Yeah.
before we
I
move
agree.
further with it.
Now, several of those things St. Coast needs to provide, or Mexico Beach does. The concurrency certificates?
Yes.
I'm not aware of any. That's for the
That's for the
city to
city.
provide.
That's correct. But we don't have it here. It's not been provided for us.
So can I ask for clarification? I thought that the requirement was to state whether a certificate of concurrency requirements could be met if one didn't have to be issued with the development order. Is that correct or incorrect?
So I was looking for James to come up and answer that question.
I couldn't tell you anything about concurrency studies.
So it's on, in the LDC page 7-14, section 7.06.01 is where it describes the requirement.
I'm sorry, say again, 7.
So page 7-14 in the Land Development Code, dated August
You mean-
2019.
Period? I don't see any dashes.
That's the page number.
Oh,
If
okay.
you look at the article
Okay,
number,
I got it now.
7.06.01, it's titled Certificate of Concurrency. If you take a look at that, and that's what I just want to clarify, whether it's actually required or it's just the requirement is that the development the status of the development can meet that requirement.
Okay, it says that a finding that the development will not degrade the level of service and standards for public facilities and services. It also says a certificate of concurrency attached to an approved development order, and we don't have that, so we need that. Because as we've already expressed, we've got an awful lot of things that have been approved for development. And at some point, we got to look at water and sewer because you can only use it once. And there's a lot of people already in line using the capacity that we have. So we need to be sure that the city and the staff have looked at this and agreed that we have the capacity for water and sewer.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. As I've stated several times, we're approximately 37% capacity. There's no chance for us to not have capacity for sewer. They're putting water on the ground. Bay County is telling them to dump water out because we're not using enough. There is not an issue, and I've been confirmed that with the Director of Public Utilities for Bay County, on both of those items.
Lisa?
The disconnect has been for many years that Bay County
We're at the table.
is on a different formula than the LDR states, and the problem also becomes for sewer. And the problem also is that when we talk about sewer capacity, we are talking about the contractual capacity that the city is under contract to have to send to the wastewater treatment plant. It has nothing to do with the size of the pipes in the ground or the size of the pumps. That we are over our contractual capacity and have been since before the hurricane.
The other issue, I think, is not only are we, as someone stated, building out, which this is building out. These homes weren't there originally. And so we're still having to catch up with who is rebuilding. And, at the time that the storm hit, I believe we had 1,200 dwelling units, something like that.
1892.
Okay, 1892. We had 1,200 residents, I believe. And so we still have some of those people needing to build back, and we've approved, I think, of around 900 new dwelling units in the past year. So I'm just saying we need to be sure that we have that the concurrency study is done and that somebody is checking on this water and sewer, okay? Yes, sir. This is, you guys were given a chance to talk, but now.
You
I know.
recognize someone in the audience.
You're right. So what is it you'd like to say?
If I was condescending as you're on the phone with me. My question is, are you speaking to us, or are you talking to your planning and zoning peers that you're addressing us about what your concerns currently are? And then the second question is, do you ask staff these questions before you come to this meeting?
Staff is supposed to bring us a complete package, and I don't really feel today we have complete package.
Okay. Anybody else?
The other item that I was going to follow up on was Joe Drive is not going to be a main entrance to the City Hall. when they be coming in on 22nd Street across the bridge into the complex.
When did that come about?
Okay, so the other concern that I've had is that when right after the storm, we had a number of meetings, and we met down at the Gulf County Fire Department. And what happened in those meetings is we discussed this floodplain concept and what we could do to build back stronger. And as part of that plan, one of the things that everybody that I've spoken to before, since, and during was really excited about the idea of making it so that the 8th Street Canal doesn't dump the tannic acid into the Gulf of Mexico, because it has long been an issue for Mexico Beach, and the discussion was that we could in fact do something about that and make sure that that water runs back across 386 into Panther Swamp. And this area that we're talking about in this development, if we don't have that to use as a ponding area as part of our floodplain, then we're not going to be able to do that. And that would be a huge benefit to the entire community. So that's a concern that I think we need to bring out. The fact that if we do this, we're negating some issues that we had hoped to solve after the storm.
The city doesn't own this property.
That's right.
The
And
developer owns the property.
That's right.
They're
You're
here
exactly
today
right.
Just as a follow-up to that, we are actively speaking with the developer about the possibility of working with them on the design. We just closed on the 80 acres in the far eastern town on Friday, so that project is still continuing to move.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments?
The plan that you referenced, I guess providing sort of recreational use to that canal, that was presented to the public at the gumbo cook-off 2 years ago out in the parking lot of the boat.
That was the proposed resiliency plan.
Yeah.
You're talking about that area is a park, a wetlands park.
Correct, where that would essentially be dammed or somehow divert the water back.
But the fact is, the city never purchased that property to do that. And so that's not up to us at this point, I believe, to make that. We can't make that decision.
What decision you're making today is whether you recommend to the city council whether this development order should be granted or not. Under the LDRs that currently exist.
I'm sorry, I don't want that to be stuff.
No, I just, that point that you brought up, I've not heard the status since that.
We don't own that property,
Okay.
is my understanding, and so this company has come in as developer, and they're asking to develop that property. The city does not. So, but I share your concern about the wetlands and the outflow into the Gulf. However, I think under the scope of this board, we would look at the stormwater management plan that's been proposed and to make recommendations to the council on that and ask questions of the staff of that. But I don't think it's our purview to look at that as a wetlands any further.
I would agree with you. I think the purpose of this board tonight is to use this proposed development order under the current LDR and make a recommendation to the city council on whether you can make a recommendation with contingencies, you just make a flat, we don't recommend it, or you can recommend it.
Okay. So, the other big area that I see is the fact that this is in the floodplain. And I want to say something about the difference between stormwater management and the floodplain. Because stormwater management means that water that runs off a piece of property, right? And so that is different than looking at your floodplain. Because if you put fill in your floodplain, that's like putting a brick in a bowl of water. You lose that volume capacity when you do that. And so that's why the fact that it's in the floodplain and that fill in the floodplain has to be very carefully limited. And that's a concern that I have here. So
I share that concern, and I don't agree with building on that wetland. However, is Lance here? Would you mind coming up, sir? So I'm going to ask you, my understanding is, when it comes to those types of issues, the city can review it and review the stormwater management plan, which is required to contain the stormwater that would overflow from that site. But it's the responsibility of the department, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the Corps of Engineers in some cases to look at the flood zone issues. Am I correct?
Well, for wetlands fill, so the wetlands are state federally regulated, so any fill in the wetlands would go through the DEP or the Corps.
So I'm understanding that's a part of it, but that is in a flood zone, and FEMA has rules regarding altering the course of a flood zone.
So your flood ordinance speaks to that too, and you are allowed some fill to a certain capacity, it's like a foot, to a foot of fill, and those what's that, AE flood zone probably. So you are allowed up to a foot of fill based on your flood, Mexico Beach flood ordinance.
Right. So.
And then the stormwater runoff. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I guess what I'm asking is, so I share your concern about the flood zone, but I don't know that it's within our scope to, I mean, we can express concern about that to the council, but I don't know that, I think there's other agencies that are responsible for controlling that and regulating that and giving the permits to do that. That's my question.
Yeah, and I know it was mentioned too about stormwater runoff into the canal. So their stormwater calculations were submitted in the packet, and I looked at those just before I came to the meeting. So that's a requirement of DEP in Northwest Florida. So they, what they've got in the stormwater management plan is to treat all the water. So the water is required and has been designed to be treated before it's released.
Okay, the only thing I would point out to you is that we don't just operate under the LDR. We also operate under the comp plan. And objective 6.2 of the comp plan says the purpose of the comp plan is to protect the quality and quantity of environmentally sensitive lands, including floodplains and jurisdictional wetlands. The comp plan also requires a minimum 30-foot natural buffer be maintained around jurisdictional wetlands. In addition, it also includes a policy that says every reasonable step has been taken to minimize the impact to wetlands and the buffer area. Applicant, and in order to not do that, the applicant has to show there's overriding public interest in the development or impact to wetlands. And so in those two areas, we do have, as this board, an avenue to address these issues.
So I would concur that you can give a recommendation to the council to reference that. I don't believe this is jurisdictional wetlands.
It's probably, that area is probably low quality wetlands. I didn't look at any wetlands.
It's low quality wetlands, and it's right against the canal. And I'm not 100% certain, but that canal, it may be tidally influenced as well, draining straight into the Gulf. So I mean, there really is nothing that would hold water back other than storm surge.
I also think there were some, when you look at this drawing that shows the wetlands, how many acres did you come up with? Was it 9?
I'd have to see the drawing.
Okay, well, Yeah, I don't think that your total acreage was correct.
Okay.
That doesn't affect your density, because even with the correct acreage there, it still would meet the density requirements. But when you look at the area that includes the wetlands on this piece of property, it looks like over half of it is wetlands.
Potentially.
So that's a lot of area that you're going to be taking out of, quote, wetlands.
Yes, we're cooperating with the state and whatever their guidance is. We're in a vacuum state.
But
Well,
we can have more stringent things than we need to address our comp plan. Because, this clearly says every reasonable step has been taken to minimize the impact and public interest in the development or impact of the wetlands. So we have that in our comp plan. Anybody else got comments or questions?
I do.
Okay.
So I know it's been brought up about the exit point on 15th Street, and I did some calculations, and I'll just show you this. This is a photo taken from the proposed exit point on across from St. Joe Drive. And these two graphs show the line of sight to the bridge is 200 feet approximately. Just to pass that, it would be 250 feet. And when you do the calculations for that distance, if the speed limit is 35 miles an hour there, and if you're trying to come out from that exit point, you have roughly 4 seconds from when you see a vehicle to get across to 35 miles an hour. If they're going 45 miles an hour, which is fairly common there, you have less than 3 seconds. So my point is, I would recommend that we look at moving that exit point further to the northwest, approximately to the edge of their property, which would be maybe across from St. Charles Street, which is in the Casuna subdivision. That would give you roughly 400 feet, so about twice the distance, line of sight both directions, before you hit the curb. So I would recommend to the council that as they look at approval, that they change that exit, that they require the developer to change his exit point.
Okay, well, we have discussed many parts of this.
No, I'm sorry, I have some more.
Oh, go ahead.
So, on the stormwater management plan, sir?
Yes.
So I noticed in the engineering report that you're planning to, it looks like, remove a good portion of the current soil because it's not compactable to the requirement that you have.
Correct, under the roadway.
Right, okay. Oh, okay. And are you going to change the height of the current property? Are you
Yes, there is fill in the site.
So what height will that property be above what the current level is?
You should be able to look at the grading plan, and it'll show the existing grade and the proposed grade.
Okay, I apologize, I'm not an engineer, so if you could point that out to me.
Is it on?
Will you be above 3 feet? Will you raise the property level more than 3 feet?
So if you look at the sheet 7,
Okay.
there's the profile view at the bottom.
Okay.
Existing grade is roughly, this is just the entry road. Existing grade is roughly 7 feet in elevation. And we're coming up to 8, 7 to, so roughly 9 feet, so a couple feet.
All right. And then back to the stormwater management, the plan, the containment plan. In in one of your documents, I'm trying to find it, I think it's on the Perkins chart. It talks to, it looks like your predictions are made on a 2-year, 24-hour storm system. Is that a typo?
No, that's the requirement for Northwest Florida. Now, I think I've got a 100-year storm for Mexico Beach.
So
I think you guys require 25.
the city of Mexico Beach for ordinance 720 requires a 25-year.
Yes, I've got that.
So 25-year and 24 hours. Does that stormwater system you designed meet that requirement?
Yes. Yeah, I've got it designed for 100 year.
Okay.
And the 2 year that you saw in there was one of the storms. That's for the state requires that.
Okay.
Do you want to, I'm sorry, Jim, do you want to address any of the entryway points or anything like that? Is that something that's up for conversation with the developer? The council, excuse me, the P&Z board decided that any approval was based on that?
I was having to discuss with the developer.
Do you have any drop lanes selected coming in and out of these? It doesn't show anything other than the apron.
No, we don't at the moment. But I mean, if there is potential for that, yes.
That would help you. Fine, Representative.
No, that's fine. I'm trying to find it.
You can make it a ride out only as well.
There are a couple other questions. Let me get to the page here, I'm sorry. So on a couple of your charts, and this is one, this is the aerial view, there's a blue line around 3 separate properties.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the intent of that?
That's just the overall site.
But
Everything to the south of the canal is not being developed, but it's owned by the developer.
Okay, so you're saying that strip of property is owned by the developer?
Correct.
And this corner area is owned by the developer?
Correct.
But your development
Is for everything. I included the entire project because it's all one project, one property, the whole boundary.
Okay.
However, we're only developing a certain portion of the property.
All right, so is this development request for those 3 lots, or is it for?
It's for what's shown in the boundary survey. I don't know the exact lots, if they're
there's
still 3 lots or if they're all one now. I'm not sure if they've been combined or not, but it's the survey right on the back, right there, right. It's for that area.
Do you know what their mitigation plan is?
Yeah, the wetlands will be classified as a certain quality from our wetland scientist. The DEP agrees to it, and then off-site mitigation banks are used to purchase. It's usually, 1 to 4, 1 to 10, somewhere in that range. So if we impact an acre, usually we purchasing many acres off-site to set into conservation. So it won't be.
When you say off-site, that's not here in Mexico?
No, well, I don't know exactly where the mitigation bank is. It's in the same. The state has deemed large drainage basins.
Pick off.
Yeah, there will be several that they have a choice to pick from, but it's I don't know this area where the actual bank is.
So I don't believe there are any mitigation banks in the city of Mexico Beach.
Probably not.
I asked this question of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and was told there are none here. So you can be assured that those mitigation credits will not be used within Mexico Beach. I'm sorry, sir. This diagram here.
That was just a little concept plan, I believe, that the owner provided.
Because it's different.
Yeah, it's different. I'm not even sure. I think that was mainly just for the geotech. We got all the geotech work done prior to us having a final tweaked layout.
Okay. So you included the information for 4 borings?
Correct.
I noticed the first one is a boring depth of 3 feet and the rest are considerably further. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, the shallower ones mainly for roadway. And, I have to look see what he labeled them. But yes, usually the shallower ones are for the roadway. If he gets down in the nasty soils, then he'll label it that, and he won't go any much deeper.
Okay.
But the other ones would be for to determine where the seasonal high water table is for us to use for our stormwater pond.
And that's based on a total of 4 borings, correct? For that almost 10 acres?
Well, yeah, it's only in the pond location where we would use that boring to determine our water table for our pond.
Sorry, I'm almost done. So, one of the requirements in the land development code is to ensure that your stormwater outflow from the property
Is less
than the previous one.
Mhm.
Can you tell me the two numbers? What's the difference? Is it much less or is it the same?
It should be in the it is less. I've got a spreadsheet in the back that shows that one would show the post, and then there would be another model that shows the pre.
See the borings that we want? I had that.
You said there's a summary?
The borings of the section.
Okay, and my last question, I'm curious because of the size of some of those smaller lots, about 5,500 square feet. Are they going to be a single car parking space included in that?
It would be a standard driveway as far as I'm not developing it, so.
Yeah.
But I did assume a certain percentage to be impervious area for the property.
Right, so I guess I'm asking this question of Lance, if he's still here. On a development like this, is the impervious number based on each individual lot, or is it a total of the entire development?
Well, it's based on the lot, because when they go to build, you get a building permit for the lot. But what's typically done, and what I'm sure you did, was assume if it's 40%, then you allot 40% of those lots to your stormwater calculations. And the roads included, and then the allowable impervious area on each lot is included in stormwater design. So once this thing's platted and they go to pull building permits, and then they're regulated by the 40% maximum impervious area, it's already designed for that.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking that is some of those lots are fairly small, and when you figure in the setback and the driveway and the size of the house, some of those are pretty small houses. That's not our concern. I just want to be sure that the impervious versus pervious numbers work out as far as the whole stormwater and the absorption of water in the system. So it sounds like that's been calculated.
Yeah, the code allows for a certain percentage impervious of each individual lot.
40% in this.
And I think I assumed higher than that. I assumed 2,500. I don't know how much I got, but yes, I assumed 2,500 square foot of the 55 for each lot. Even some of the lots are much bigger. Still only assumed 2,500. But the road's also included in there, and it's 50% of the right of way for impervious area.
So does the width of the streets you have planned allow for on-street parking and the requirement so emergency vehicles can pass?
It's got the emergency vehicles, but there's no on-street parking. All the parking will be on the lots.
Okay. That might be difficult. So my concern would be if you don't plan for on-street parking and you have emergency vehicles, I think there's a 40-foot requirement for emergency vehicles in the street itself. So, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the as far as the 25-year storm, it's there's a pre-development section and a post-development. The critical 25 is 11.6 CFS pre, and the post we had 9 CFS, so it's much less.
Thank you.
Yes.
You know, one of the concerns I have is that the information we have here There's a lot of mistakes.
Yes.
There's a lot of holes in it. And, you know, I think we need to think about that as we go forward, because the acreage is not even correct. And I think we need to address those issues, you know, and
We need to have to resubmit it.
so, discussion?
No further discussion. I agree, these things need to be clear before we
Yeah.
move forward.
Bring something to us and we're supposed to look at, like, an educated, firm decision on, you know, what we think. We need correct information to be able to do that.
Needs to be accurate.
So,
So,
You mean the typos on the first page? Where they put in the word condo?
And
What else is on the second page? I'm sorry.
the setbacks and stuff.
But all that's included inside the packet.
no, this part down here, building height, flood zone, landscape buffers, finished floor elevation, there are a lot of things that are not.
But all those items are within the packet though, just not on the cover sheet.
There, in as far as the finished floor, the max building height, there should be a table in there as well that shows it.
We need it on our development orders.
Okay.
It's whatever the zoning.
Correct.
It's whatever
It's
the
based on
max is, so when they come in and to the building, they can go up to in that particular zone
so
designation.
this is my opinion on this request. I would recommend they look at moving their entry-exit point. I understand.
Is this a motion, sir?
No, it's not. I want to discuss this first. This is what I'm thinking. Recommend that they change the entry-exit point so it's to a safer location. But as far as the packet goes, I understand there's some mistakes made on some of the cover sheets. And there's an awful lot of information. And I don't like the idea of filling in a wetland, but I believe, other than that, this development request meets the requirements of the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan. That's my opinion. I'll just offer that up.
And it's more than just the top sheets. There are some information inside that does not match from one section to another.
And perhaps I have spoken with the staff the last few days and asked some questions. And I feel comfortable in making a recommendation to approve this to the council. So I'll offer that up, and then you guys will have our discussion and motion from there. I don't know what your opinion is.
I think in the past,
So that was a motion to approve?
no, we have not.
We didn't say well.
No, I'm not yet there.
I think in the past, the planning and zoning as well as the city council has brought things before them and didn't have all the information. And I think that we've hurt ourselves by doing that. So that's what, I don't think all the information is correct. I don't see a lot in the actual, even one section, the land is turned this way, and in another section, it's turned an opposite way on one of these maps. So I'm like where the road is.
It's still north and
So,
south.
yeah.
It's just how they use the slide. It might be how the packet was made by our own staff here in the city.
We're not comfortable with it. How can we approve it? I mean,
Well, we need,
This too, just, you know, I know that's, we don't know.
You're not approving or denying, you're making a recommendation.
Recommendation, yeah.
sorry,
You're not approving or denying, you're just making a recommendation to the city council of what you think they should do.
well, we have tabled things in the past and asked them to be resubmitted.
I mean, the big issue that I'm hearing, and you all have a lot more history in Western Beach than I do, but the wetland area, nobody wants to do away with it. Everybody wants to retain I think it's good, that water field. You can't do it without mitigating.
Right. Well, the thing about that is, we can't do anything about the wetland situation because we're not covering ourselves in our LDC or our, comp plan. I would suggest we go back and start covering ourselves, or we're gonna have a really bad problem here with our wildlife, our plant life. It's gonna end up poisoning our city in the long run, over the next, however many, way longer after me and you are both gone, I'm sure. But we do have to look into the future.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so is anybody willing to make a motion?
Well, I'm motion we table it.
Okay, is there a second for that?
You have to
I
cover
think you need to make a recommendation,
Okay.
one way or the other, or contingency. But it's going in front of the city council next week.
On the 10th, unless the applicant withdraws the application.
Is there any merit to looking at the road issue? It sounds like you've done some educated calculations. I'm not against a person being able to, or anyone being able to develop their land the way they should be allowed to do. If there is an issue with the road that could be looked at by an engineer.
I'll go back to the owner and let them know that I think, and it probably is best interest to potentially put a additional lane there, or make it a ride out only, or even have the owner. I haven't been down this road. If there's a flashing beacon before you hit that corner to slow down like 15 miles an hour or whatever, have the owner fund putting something up.
I've also spoke to the owner about help with, not only with the stormwater side, but with some sidewalk issues on 15th in front. So there's an opportunity for us there. They'll also be bringing back, Mr. Kerrigan, a plat, like a preliminary plat, something like that. Would that, any part of that come back to us that would address those entry-exit points, or?
Well, that's what I was going to
Yeah, well, the plat would fall. I'm not 100% certain with Mexico Beach if the plat follows after the pre-development order or not, but he's working on a plat based on this layout.
Again, I still have some problems with the fact that the acreage is not correct.
Which acreage are you referring to?
When you talk about the total acreage, it's actually, you talk about it being 9 something, but it's actually 8.06 acres. So there's some discrepancies in the whole thing.
That's the packet. This is the survey.
So, that's the problem I'm having is we got some gaps here. We got some holes that I really think should be addressed.
Where is the 8?
Well, all you have in here is that it's 9 acres.
Correct, 9.8 roughly.
I went on the Bay County maps, and when I looked at it, it calculated out to be 8.06.
When you say Bay County maps,
Pardon?
when you say Bay County maps, what do you mean?
I mean, I looked on
Property appraisal website?
That's 7.06. So that doesn't include the lot to the whole.
even adding both of
The
those.
whole parcel is 9.5. roughly.
Be careful looking at the Bay County property appraisal website.
It's 3 parcels in one.
The first thing you're gonna see on there is none of this, we're not guaranteeing any specific.
All right, so we need to clarify, is this request for this one lot listed as parcel number 04175-01-000, or does it include 3 pieces of property, the adjacent to the northwest and then the southern along the canal, which?
Correct, so there's 3.
Everything you've submitted makes it look like it's just the one parcel.
The boundary reflects right here. There's the parcel there, the little rectangle, which is that one. And then there's the bigger piece, which which is that. And there's a long, narrow one here, which is the canal. And they own the canal.
I understand they own it. Is that in the development request?
This is off a different report. That's just he may have done this whenever there was only one parcel here and this other one was not included. But it doesn't change the spirit of anything because all his borings are where I needed them with the stormwater pond.
Even though they couldn't access a lot of that because of it being such floodwaters.
No, he accessed it. He goes out
He
there.
says it wasn't accessible.
No, I mean, like to trucks and stuff, it's not accessible. But he actually goes out there, walks, and takes an order.
All right, so does it, I guess.
Well, he's got the boring logs there that he signed off on.
Lance, I guess I'm gonna ask you this question. Does it make a difference whether this development request is for the one parcel or for, it includes all three parcels?
No, if it includes all three parcels, and they're replatting it anyways, and they'll just take those three parcels and make it into however many proposed.
So we can consider it as one development request, even though it sounds like it's three parcels without it being combined?
Yeah, because you wouldn't the point of combining parcels is to build like a commercial development or something on one parcel. If you're taking three parcels and replat them into multiple, more than three parcels, there's no reason to combine them first and then.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So I would suggest someone makes a motion that we either recommend approve or disapprove with the council. I think that's our job.
Yeah.
And we can specify the reasons why we recommend not approval or even approval, but I think that's what our responsibility is. Well, the motion I'm gonna make is for approval. So if you're not in agreement with that, then we should vote on different.
Yeah, give a second.
I make the motion that we recommend approval of this development request to the council.
And what about your portion of the road?
And that we recommend that the council require the developer to change the exit location to the, I guess it's northwest, to a safer location.
What about the other question?
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Tammy, will you call the roll?
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
No.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Linderman?
Yes.
Mr. Saunders?
No.
Okay. Next we have,
So
Does anybody else have another motion?
we can't leave it at that.
You can't be made like
We can't be doing it.
No, they're not, the motion failed.
right,
3 to
so,
2. Now,
so,
someone
then,
else like to make it. Didn't make a decision, just his motion failed.
okay, so. It's up to
Well, I
somebody
think
else.
there's so many questions we all have, it should go back to the designer and answer those questions, come back to it, and give us a package we can approve.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Will this come back to planning and zoning? This is a pre-development, correct? Would that development
This is development order.
order? So plans and what it really looks like and anything else?
Well, they're gonna plan it out, and then, when each individual house is built, they'll have permits, and they'll be inspecting along the
So
way.
it just,
Okay,
I think the only thing we can do, guys, as far as the wetlands and this information and them not giving us all the correct information is that we have to put a motion in for us to go back and look at our LDC and our comp plan, we're gonna keep running into this stuff, and we're gonna have a lot of issues in the future.
We've heard the exit entrance point thing. We've heard about the discrepancy in the acreage, which I believe was cleared up. Then we heard about the wetlands, which he's done a good job of explaining. It's really kind of not, a lot of it's not in your hands. So what's the other information that you're asking?
Well, I think when you bring something to somebody, regardless of what it is, and you're expected to look at it and there's incorrect information on it, that makes it very difficult to
What's
say,
the incorrect?
well, everything on the first page and most of it on the second.
Well, that's just.
Multifamily versus condo. The acreage is not correct. None of the other stuff is filled out as far as, you know,
What's the hurry?
I'm not comfortable with it, no.
I believe it was cleared up though.
It's not cleared up.
No. Lance, I know you have your hand up, but
Okay, never mind.
what?
No, sorry.
Okay.
That'll speak. I just want to say, a couple things. One, the incorrect description is, this made it to the council or to the P&Z with that on there, from wherever it came from, not from the applicant.
Right.
So that's something that can and should, well, I say can, Clinton may have to correct me if I'm wrong, but that can be taken care of on record in this meeting, what public meetings are for. And also, if something's done that's not a recommendation for approval, if I was him, I would be leaving here confused. So if there is a recommendation other than approval to the council, then I think he should get a list of things, reasons why, things to update, because I'm thoroughly confused on the reasoning behind the not approving it.
I'll step out here and I'll say that I motion that we approve 15th Street, Mexico Beach, parcel number 04175.011-000, with the stipulations that these documents are corrected before they go before the city council, as well as, what was the other thing? Moving the entrance exit to a safer location. Anything else we need to pass in there?
Before and concurrence.
Oh, sidewalks.
Concurrency information.
Concurrency information, all go to the city council for them to make hopefully a very intelligent, well-educated decision on this.
Is there a second?
A second.
Ready? Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
No.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Linderman?
Yes.
Mr. Saunders?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on now to our next development order.
What happened to the first decision?
We're sending it to the city council and let them make this decision.
So just as a point of clarification, we'll make sure that this is done better in the future. I
Yes,
apologize to
thank
the
you.
P&Z board. I'll work closely with EPCI to get that corrected.
That would help. Thanks. We appreciate that. Okay. So the next parcel is parcel 04173-113-000. This is the development order on 15th Street, 932. And this has come before us before. Oh, no, it didn't. Okay, so we will open.
It was withdrawn as a
It was
different-
withdrawn, so it was not discussed. All right, so we'll open the public meeting, and anyone who wishes to speak is welcome.
Dawson, Southeast Consulting Engineers. So GR&W Investing LLC proposes to construct a new development called the Villas at Mexico Beach on 15th Street. The property is 6.24 acres, and the proposed development is 8 new residential multifamily structures, 40 units total. 5 of the structures are 6plexes, 2 are 4quadruplexes, and 1 is a duplex. Each unit will be raised on pilings with additional parking underneath in addition to the parking in front of the residence. It has a 24-foot wide private asphalt drive with roadway with an additional 12 inches on each side, concrete ribbon curves, so a 26-foot wide total. There's a hammerhead cul-de-sac at the end of it for emergency vehicle circulation, and I think we have some, we ran all the turn on. I don't know if it's in the plan or not. So we ran the largest fire service, larger than Mexico Beach has, for the turnaround on that. It has a 1,450 square foot clubhouse and pool house with a pool and additional parking for golf carts and regular additional parking spots and handicap parking stalls as well. The buildings are located 18 feet off the property line, so that leaves more than sufficient room for a 10-foot buffer fence required by the LDR. It is general commercial with allowable density of 18 units per acre, so that's 112 units, but 40 units are proposed in this plan. The allowable impervious percentage is 90% in commercial, and this is 33.08% proposed. And so, we mentioned buffers a minute ago. All the setbacks are adhered to for the land development code. I did mention on the last presentation, I already mentioned sidewalks. This one would be exempt from sidewalks because of what section is it? 3.02.01B. All currently platted lots are exempt from sidewalk requirements. I also heard you mention water and sewer. So water and sewer, as far as coming through the city, you get signatures. You guys get signatures from the city. You got to get signatures from the plant that is water's coming from or wastewater is going to for capacity, and that's not typically completed at the time of development order. All development orders are contingent upon getting permits for water, sewer, wetlands filling, and that sort of thing. So in general, all development orders are contingent upon receiving those permits. Those permits, in order to be submitted, have to be signed off by the city. So that's something that will be taken care of at that time, immediately after the development order. That's it right now. I'll stick around for questions.
Where do you see the exemption for sidewalks?
3.02.01B.
So you're saying it's currently platted?
Yes, ma'am. This isn't a replat request or subdivision request.
Okay. Members of the public. Anybody got comments? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and come on up.
Hey, my name's Elena Roberts. I live at 1005 Lot A, Cypress Lane. One of my biggest concerns is the flooding in our area. They have, at our insistence, dug a ditch right now, temporarily, between our back fence and 3 stories high of fill dirt that is not being maintained. The dirt, every time it rains, washes into the temporary ditch, despite the fact that they did put up the plastic barrier against the mounds that have also not been maintained. They're falling down, they're washing out. The power of the dirt pushing against them has a lot of them broken, fell down. There's already garbage in the temporary ditch, junk, who knows where it came from. It's mostly up near 15th Street end where all the garbage is collecting. My one main problem is the height of these buildings is going to be 2.5 to 3 stories tall. And when they get through spreading this fill dirt out, it's going to raise the area 3 feet before they even put in the pylons, the lift. We're now in a non-flood zone area, but if you displace almost 7 acres of water, the drainage and the cistern and the reservoir that they've got, looking at this and what I could tell of the plans, is not going to be enough. It won't. Because the drainage ditch that it runs back into behind the facility is only that. It is a drainage ditch. It does not meet the canal. It's just a ditch, just like what they dug on the side behind my property. There's no mention of where or how any trash is going to be collected. Where is there in the plans where they're going to put a dumpster, if any? If you're bringing in 40 new home units, all of these people are going to create more garbage, especially in where they're going to build up the dirt. You add that into the height of the buildings they're planning to build, and the easement from the back of my yard to them, they're going to put balconies on this thing too. We might as well have the El Governor 10 or 15 feet behind my backyard. And I'm not happy about that. I don't want a spring breaker. And we all are not stupid. You can call it dwellings, you can call it homes, you can call it residence if you want to, but they're going to be rentals. Not all of them, but a lot of them will be. And I know that's not in your hands. There's not a whole lot anybody can do about that. But who's going to be responsible for the extra traffic? Right there, where right in front of this area is the post office, a little grocery, and a little liquor store that's already a traffic issue and a problem and a headache for the city and the people who live in that area now. And if they think that it's a little problem now, wait. You add what they're planning in my backyard, plus the extra that we were just discussing about up in the corner of 15 in the curve, that's 3 times the traffic. All of that traffic is going to bleed into the feeder streets, side streets. That means more maintenance for the city because these roads are going to give out. It's going to mean more problems for the city because, say, a teenager walks across the street to go to the liquor store where there's an 18-wheeler parked and the oncoming traffic cannot see this kid walking across the street and runs him over on 15th Street that does belong to Mexico Beach. Who's going to be responsible for that? Because this traffic is going to be insane. And our privacy is an issue, especially me. I mean, I don't have anything to hide, but why build these tall buildings where the only view is going to be other people's backyards? I mean, now I'm proud of my backyard, but I don't think it's a tourist attraction. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I don't want somebody standing there on their lounge chair watching my family and me have a cookout and say something nasty. And it's possible. How uncomfortable is that going to be for us? It's not going to be a nice scenario to even walk in my own backyard. And I don't think that's fair for those of us that were here first. We were here before Michael. We bought this house 4 months before the storm hit. We almost lost everything we had. We lost 2 rooms of our brand new retirement permanent home. We now have blood, sweat, and tears in this place. A lot of our neighbors on that street have already said, if this goes through, they're moving. They're leaving. That's not what they bought their homes for, is to live under the old governor. And I agree, but I'm not leaving. I will not. I'm going to fight it. And I know a lot of other people around here are going to fight it as well, because we deserve to be heard as citizens of Mexico Beach before the developers, before the tourists, before the renters are allowed to come in and just take over, basically. I have a lot of more issues, problems with this development, but I'm not educated enough in the what-fors of all the plannings and this stuff like that. All I know is what this thing's going to look like and the simple basics that it's going to mean to all of us on 15th Street. What it's going to do to our street, what it could pendingly cost the city if somebody gets killed because of it. And it might not be somebody's child, it may be an elderly resident walking slowly out behind an 18-wheeler that's parked there to unload goods to the liquor store. What's that going to do? The city of Mexico Beach can't afford that. Somebody dying because they want more revenue. And why there again are we having to build up 3 foot of fill dirt in a non-flood zone? You displace 7 acres of land, what's that going to do to our non-flood zone? It won't be a non-flood zone anymore. That water's got to go somewhere. And I don't want it to be in my house. There's a lot more to say, but I don't want to keep everybody here all night. I'm just hitting on the very basics. I do agree they have every right to build. I'm not saying they don't. But why does it have to be towering stories over our homes and putting us out so they can make it all up? If they will build on our level, it would be much more suited to the neighborhood, all the surrounding area. You wouldn't have a neighborhood problem. You would still have the traffic. There's still going to be issues with that. But the city is going to make revenue off of this construction site, no matter what. But I understand the developers are going to try and cram as many people onto that property as they can. And the city isn't going to make money off of each individual who stays there. They're only going to make revenue from the taxes of that property. And the developers seem to want to cram as many people in there as they can. And that's going to create a serious problem for all of us here in Mexico Beach. I mean, if you want Panama City, move to Panama City Beach. And I remember what was said right after the hurricane by the mayor himself. There wasn't a dry eye out there standing out here in these pickleball courts when he swore that Mexico Beach and our way of life is not for sale. What happened to that? our life and our lifestyle is up for grabs if we let this continue. We're gonna be Panama City Beach before you can blink an eye. And those of us that were here first don't stand a chance. That's what I feel. I'm afraid that I'm wasting my time. They're gonna do what they wanna do regardless. And the rest of us are gonna have to live with it, and I don't think it's fair. Not one iota. I don't think it's fair. We were here first. We should count for something. And if I can think of anything else to help try to negotiate something more pleasing, plausible, and better for our community as a whole, for all of us, including the builder, including the people that have invested their money in this property, they deserve to get something out of it, but not at the expense of those of us that was here first. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Lee Elsie, 1004 Cypress Lane. Our family's owned that piece of property since 1980. It's almost 7 acres to begin with. We sold some property across the street so people like Roberts who live there with us outside.
Yes. They don't know, but they sold it to someone else who sold it.
I'll wait till they're finished talking. So, since 1980, with that property, we've watched the sea pines develop on one side of us. We've watched houses go up on the other side. We've known all along for the last 42 years that all that property along there is commercial property, knowing full well that because it's commercial property, there's a lot of things that can go on there, whether it be residential things like sea pines with a number of units, or whether it be Wallace Pump and Supply, two plats over with that. We own the second largest contiguous part to what's going in with this development, only to Wallace Pump and Supply. I've stated before that as long as a developer, as long as a builder, as long as a homeowner is doing whatever is within the land development code, we should let them do those types of things. I do share a concern, though, as Ms. Roberts does, with making sure that any stormwater or drainage is maintained or contained within that piece of property. None of us want to see it go into their backyards, or to Rose's backyard, or anybody's like that, comes across the street into our yard. Our yard's already lower than theirs. It's probably 12 to 18 inches lower than what she said right now. So I understand that concern with that. And I spoke with Lance a month ago about this. I know that they have plans to do it, and all I can do is take you at your word that it's going to be contained. And so, but I'm just going on record that is our only concern with that piece of property is the drainage.
Can I address the drainage real quick? Just to follow up.
Sure.
Or no, I can wait. Get more comments first.
Are there other people that would like to speak?
I'm Chip Wallace, representing Wallace Pump Supply Company. We're on the east side of the development, and what concerns us is the stormwater drainage. They've got an 18-inch pipe designed to go through there. We think it should be as much as 36. Silt fills in, and we sell pipe every day, and it would really cut it down to a 9-inch when you have that occur. And then the drainage ditch, like the lady said here, on our side is already flowing onto our lot, the temporary drainage ditch. So the stormwater concerns us with that coming through there.
Yes, sir.
We're a builder representing the developer. As far as the ditch that she brought up, that ditch was already there. Mr. Baber can certify that. And your public works guy. The ditch that was on that side was there. All they asked us to do was to clear it up because it had debris from Michael in there. But that ditch was already there.
There was a tiny French drain.
So all we did was clean it up. So we cleaned it out. It's no problem. As far as the ditch that he's talking about, and I've met Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
We put that in there just to kind of help, to make sure that we didn't flow water under there. But the natural wetlands that's in the middle of this property, which are not getting touched, it's already at the same level as the ditch that they have. So that water is already in. And it's not like we're talking about a lot of water anyway. But he is correct, because at that point, that goes into that smaller wetland area, which Lance did as well. So did the rest of the city, when we talked about it.
Lance?
So, and I've got some notes I'm going to address, that's okay. Not on my order.
Excuse me a minute.
Was there
Would
anybody
you
else?
please come forward a little bit so I can hear you better?
Yes, sir. So the first thing I wrote was the ditch, and David spoke to that. Now, one thing that I think we could do, if it's okay for me to talk to David for a second here in the meeting, is to clean up that ditch and make sure we reinstall silt fence in there so that it does contain the silt and keep that maintained. But so a few things just going down the list with the 48-foot height. I know it was mentioned, and a concern is building up to the 3 feet, whatever it is for the site, and then going up 48 feet. Well, one is these likely will not make it to 48 feet, but the measurement is not based on where the site is up. The datum for measuring this 48 feet stays the same whether there's no fill, 20-foot fill. So the elevation of the maximum height does not change because we bring 100 feet of fill to the site. So that's not a concern from a height standpoint. It's an elevation. It's elevation driven from a datum, and the datum stays the same no matter what elevation is. The fill. So there's a few reasons we have fill. One, right now, the lot is kind of coming towards the road a little bit. We've got to float at the back to get the stormwater pond. It's kind of crowned, but there's 2 reasons that the fill's being brought in. One is to gravity flow the sewer back to the city municipal sewer system, because it's you know how much higher the road is there. But the other reason is for stormwater retention. So on the plans, you'll notice a sizable pond in the back, and the reason it's a sizable pond is because we have a fairly low water table. So to combat that, with bringing fill in allows us to have more storage volume. And this pond was designed all the way through the 100-year storm event. It discharges back out into the natural wetlands behind it. It's been designed to attenuate for 100-year storm events, pre-post drainage less than the pre. So it's releasing water slower than in the post-development stage than it is now. All of it's treated, meeting Northwest Florida DEP standards. Another concern is roof runoff. So all the roofs will be guttered, downspouted into a pipe, and the pipes are routed to the pond. So no roof runoff will leave the side, go over the wall, any of that. So all of that's contained as well. Let's see. I know there's mention about existing homes being beside this development and the height and the density. And one thing that was talked about, with us and the developer and David and Jerry and everybody was, we did not maximize this lot. These condos could run from one end to the other with no space between them. They're separate units because it gives them 10 foot between them, little green space. There's a pool house, a pool parking lot, pool, and a pool deck. So the amount of people is not maximized here. We could have stacked units. The developer could have stacked units one on top of the other, multiple units all the way down the side with 100, whatever I said earlier, units, and that was not his goal, not to maximize. But as everybody knows, property values are now, you have to. That's why you buy commercial, to build commercial properties, and you make a return on the investment. So he had to get to a point of that, but not to the point where he maximized it and filled up what he could with units. I'm just going to do this. Traffic has been mentioned on the last one. It's been mentioned now. There's 100 things I'd like to say about traffic, but one of them being that's if traffic and congestion is the issue, that's a roadway issue, not a property issue, because that's what they're zoned for. That's in the land development code. So if there is traffic issues, maybe something needs to be addressed. I know people speed up and down the road, that's been mentioned a lot. And the last meeting we were at, maybe the one before, it was mentioned about law enforcement presence, not only about speeding, but about the trucks parked on the side of the road and the vehicles and the bikes and everything else is parked in the right of way, blocking the turn, the view. And, I'm not sure how that's going, but that seems to be more of an issue than the lots that are being built on per the land development code. Trash was mentioned. These, just like any other development you go to, or not any other, but a lot of other developments in the city, I know some of them have dumpsters. This is not a centralized dumpster, and there's a reason for that. These are condominiums. They're going to have ADA access, and you're not going to wheelchair a quarter of a mile down the road to the dumpster. All of these are going to have individual trash services. They're all elevated so they can have louvered, fenced in areas for the garbage when it's not at the road to be picked up. There's adequate turnaround for garbage trucks, emergency vehicles. There's a mail kiosk. I did see a note somewhere. It wasn't mentioned today yet, but mail was one of the things that I've seen in some of the comments that have been sent out. One of them was mail. There's a mail kiosk at the entrance of the development. Let's see if I missed anything. Well, if anybody else needs to talk, I'll come back up if I need to.
Anybody else?
I got one. They, what's brought up about the trash. They decided that they didn't want, this was important to the city, that they didn't want one master meter to go into the property because some of the other developments had a problem with that. So we decided to go ahead and individually meter each one, which allow us to have garbage service for each one. And that's also one they added the other fire extinguisher, or fire hydrants.
Yeah, extra fire hydrants.
So that if there is a problem and the fire department can't get back to the water, they still have water at the other points. So all that was taken into consideration as well.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Who would be responsible for making sure those drains are kept?
Condominium association. So that's going to be that. So whenever I submit this to the state for stormwater, I have to submit the maintenance and operation plan. It has to be agreed to by the condominium association. So they'll be responsible for that.
So they'll have someone out there.
Yes, ma'am.
Big stick poking it clear all the time.
There'll probably be something flushing it, but similar. Yes, ma'am.
Basically.
Yes, ma'am. Clean it out. And one thing to mention about the culvert pipe being 18 inches, the reason we didn't go bigger with that, we went out there to the adjacent parcels, and they're all 18 inches, so we just kept what was there, because it would be bottlenecked by 18 inches before it got to our 18-inch pipe. But, I mean, as a consideration, that could very easily be increased in diameter.
Okay. Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
Rock Creek, Colorado. Just to say something about this development, everything else that's going in is like the maximum amount you can put in. Like the 157 homes along the water canal and being added and everything else. Last week just mentioned how many units are going in. And for development going in, that's what I'd like to see. What's going in like that? They're not maxing it out. Only 40-something units are going in there. It could have been, what, almost triple that.
118.
Yeah, 118. I mean, that's something nice right there that's happening for a change. And the height thing, I understand what she's saying about that, but that's in your land development code. It says commercial, residential, you can go that high. I mean, that's something that you guys need to take a look at if you want to change something. But I mean, all they're doing is building to what's allowed.
Okay. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we'll close the public meeting and open it up for the board. All right. You want to go first? No, go ahead.
Just a question on the name of the development. Throughout the packet, it's interchanged between the villas at Mexico Beach and the village at Mexico Beach. So which is it?
Villas.
The villas at Mexico Beach.
Yes.
And there's already a villas of Mexico Beach on Highway 98 right next to the marina. So is that a concern? And I know that, emergency responders have their ways of finding property. But isn't it somewhat confusing that there's a villas at Mexico Beach and a villas of Mexico Beach?
That is a little confusing. Now, that's a question for the developer, and, you know, even after development order, if something needs to be changed, it can, always will have their own address, so the, you know, 911 dispatcher would use that, but I do understand what you're saying, yes, sir.
If there's one thing that I want to say with regard to this before we get into some details here, and one of the disturbing things about this particular piece of property is the fact that things got started and construction was started before you had the development order. And, you know, that kind of stuff seems to be happening. And, you know, I really think that that's something that as a city and as a board, we're going to have to address someday, because we can't have this stuff going on like this.
Yes.
That one and this one. When you put dirt and you put a ditch in there, then you have a started development. And it was all done before anybody came before this board or had a development order. So I just want to say that, just to say, look, you know, we got to keep aware of what's going on and be sure that people are conforming to what those requirements are. So I just wanted to say that to start. Now, anybody else here?
Yeah, I'm, come a little closer, Lance. My primary concern is rainwater running on other people's property. I know you said that you designed for it, but tell us again, just in a few words, what you're doing to keep water off other people's property.
So there's two main runoff areas. One's the roadway. So the roadway has an inverted crown. Runoff flows to the center, goes to stormwater inlets into the pond,
right,
and then there's roof runoff. So all the roof runoff they'll have gutters and downspouts. The downspouts go into a pipe, and all those pipes go into a main pipe that goes straight to and discharges into the stormwater pond.
Is that the 18-inch pipe?
No, that's an 8-inch pipe. Or maybe a 8 or 10-inch pipe. The letters on the plans, but it's been designed to carry the CFS flow that we have coming out off the roof.
So rainwater that falls into the areas adjacent to the property line, it all comes about?
The runoff from the roof never touches the ground. It just goes to the pond.
Could I, so based on question on the stormwater. So as I look at the stormwater plan, and I'm going to ask you to take a look at this. I see on the south side, it appears that the ditch runs the entire length of the development. And on the north side, it appears, and tell me if I'm incorrect, that ditch runs to the wetland area.
Yep.
And then it doesn't continue. So how do you contain water, stormwater, in the entire developed area? There's nothing, there's no wall.
So that ditch is outside of the retaining wall. So it's outside of we moved the retaining wall because there was an existing ditch there. Now I say there used to be a ditch there that was still in stuff still from Hurricane Michael, and that's what David cleaned out. But the intent was we moved the retaining wall 5 feet off the property line rather than on the property line, so that we could maintain that ditch on this property.
So are you saying there's a retaining wall the length of the development?
Yes.
That's from here to here? How high is it?
It ranges. On average, I would say 3, but there's little dips that'll be a little higher. There's humps that'll be lower. So it just depends on where you're at in the development.
Okay. So the flow of this, it appears that the lot is angled towards the middle. There's culverts, which then goes into a stormwater pipe that drains into a detention pond in the south rear corner. Is that correct?
That would be north.
I think that's south. It appears that that pipe runs into the southern corner.
That would be the northwest corner.
Okay. There's not a pipe going into the other detention
It's all
pond.
one pond.
Okay, so that's one, all right. And then that overflows into the wetlands area, into what looks like a filtration box of some sort?
Well, it's a bubble up box. So what is the top of that box is about 2/10 above the grade, but it's way lower than the pond structure. So when it flows out of that, it'll bubble up out of that box, and the design was to release that water slower at a slower rate than it is right now.
So if we get a really big rainfall, what contains that water overflowing into that box and going north or south?
Nothing. That's a wetland.
So so your analysis is that wetland will contain any runoff that
It will
overflows?
contain it as good or better than it does right now, because we're releasing at a slower rate.
Okay, so there's it appears on your drawing, there's an upland area right behind that. You want to take a look at it. So my concern is it looks like the water is going to flow to the back of that, and it's going to run into that higher ground, and then it's going to go north and south.
Well, it will go into the wetland. Once it gets in the wetland, it spreads out. But that's all still wetland, whether you go, that's east and west, but it's still wetland whether you go east and west.
So you're saying there's no properties on the north or south side of the wetlands area?
There are properties, but that's all wetland. So what we're required to do for DEP, Gulf West Florida Water Management District, and all municipalities, including to discharge equal or lesser rates where it was already going. So the water was already going there untreated. Now it's going there treated and slower.
Okay. So my next concern about this is, so again, this is in a flood zone, a FEMA flood zone, and it comes through approximately here. You're going to, it appears.
That's an X flood zone.
Not back here it is now.
No, not in the wetland, it's not.
So that water is going to, I believe it comes up here, but here's my question. So you're going to raise this strip 3 feet approximately.
Ish. There'll be areas higher, areas lower.
Okay. So are you impeding the natural flow of water that would go from one area to another by raising that fence?
Yes, in the wetlands. The water doesn't flow that way. It doesn't flow from the west across this upland to Wallace Pump right now.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hey, Lance, so I second Mr. Wallace here about make that a bigger pipe.
Okay, the driveway. Okay.
Yeah, because once you.
David, you go with that?
On the driveway code?
Yep.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
There are a couple of other things. You are inside the 500-year floodplain, and again, you're putting fill in there.
That's right.
And the maximum, as I read this, can only be 12 inches.
So
and you've got 3 to 4 feet.
So I met with the city on that in the beginning, and Doug can probably speak more to that. So one, we're in when you say a 500-year floodplain, right, there's no state or federal regulations against anything elevation-wise or volume-wise because it's not a recognized floodplain by FEMA. It's a 500-year floodplain, not a 100-year floodplain. But in the LDR, it has the, I don't know what the exact verbiage is, but something to the effect of the city administrator approving certain amounts of field house, not in an AE or DE or A flood zone or AO or unnumbered A, but it's something like this because, and the reason again for it is for stormwater management and attenuation. So what this does is by allowing it to go up another 1.5 feet, 2 feet, whatever it is, that allows them to design the stormwater to do just what we've been talking about, to attenuate for not only a 25-year storm, but a 100-year storm. and treat it and release it at a slower rate than it was, and keep all the runoff for the adjacent properties, from going onto the adjacent properties.
But you're still changing the volume available in the floodplain.
And not a FEMA recognized, not a federally recognized floodplain,
But we have it in our code.
right, you also have in there.
And we can be more strict than,
Yeah, absolutely. You also have it in there that the city administrator for these types of purposes can approve that.
okay.
That's correct. As the floodplain administrator, I have the right to approve that, and I did that not ill will. They gave it an approved letter stating about the runoff would not cause any undue impact, and just as he spoke about the stormwater runoff. In addition to that, just to be clear, you know, a lot of this comes out of Ordinance 757 related to this project, whereas the start of construction permanent construction does not include land preparation such as clearing, grading, filling, things of that nature, so it is appropriate. However, 1,500 truckloads is a lot. I understand that.
And the other thing that is included in LDR section 4.03.06 requires 30 feet of undisturbed natural buffer around the wetlands. You aware of that?
Yes, ma'am.
So
It's
you've got
in there.
30 feet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Jurisdictional allowance. But yes, ma'am, we have that. You can see that on this outside. Yeah, you see that 30-foot wetland setback buffer.
Which page is that?
You can look on sheet C-06.
Okay. And what has happened to that other little area of wetlands?
So what we're doing with that is actually, if you go to the grading plan,
Which is what number?
there's a lot of pages on here.
Yep. Had it a few minutes ago, but.
So we're grading, so that from the buildings and the road, we're sloping to that wetland. Sloping the grade to that wetland. So it's actually being, a small portion around the perimeter of that wetland is being mitigated for that slope.
Which page sheet, that's Jim?
I'm looking at C-09, but that's not a grading sheet, but that shows what we're looking for. So let's look at C-10.
Okay. Okay, so you're at the grading plan on C10?
Yes, ma'am, right above your left hand right now. So we're sloping down to that wetland and actually mitigating a portion of the perimeter of the wetland, just for the slope, just so we can slope from our grade back down to the existing grade. And so with that, then that has to go through the Dredgefield Corps of Engineers, DEP permitting process. So once you're at the mitigation stage, then that setback, and that's why we had a full setback on the backside, because there's no mitigation there, they're staying out of that jurisdictional wetland. This is a low quality wetland, we're just mitigating the slope, just to get back to existing grade, and because we're mitigating, then there's, that eliminates that setback because you're mitigating into the buildable area.
When you build this, how's it gonna retain all that soil?
Retaining wall.
Okay, and your retaining wall is wood from what I'm reading.
Yes, ma'am.
And, you know, what I'm reading about wood, you know, and retaining walls, it takes a special kind of wood to last the longest time. So on average, 20-25 years for wood.
Right, and it could be longer than that as well. I mean, marine treated wood would last longer.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, what type of wood y'all gonna use? Is it gonna be feasible for this not to be a problem? And how's it gonna be maintained? Because any kind of wood
again,
has to be maintained.
that's part of the maintenance and operation agreement when we submit the stormwater permit. Part of the stormwater permit is to make sure you're not having drainage on the other property. And soil drain, any erosion onto the other properties. So part of the operation and maintenance plan that the condo association has to agree to in order to get a permit is that they maintain all of that. So the condo association is required to maintain.
I'm just curious, why would y'all not go with it? And I don't think this goes the full length, this is just little spots.
No, it goes the full length except for the wetlands.
Okay, that is gonna be a full retaining wall?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's not what I was reading with my phone.
And the reason we did not do it in sections is for two reasons. One, you have a big slope, this can drop straight down and allow that ditch to move water to the road where it slopes to the road and then to the wetland where it slopes to the wetland.
Okay. So the retaining wall is not gonna be back here at all?
It will be up to where the pond stops
Okay.
and on the north.
So you're still gonna have this back here will be built up, so how's that gonna prevent erosion and that kind of thing?
So the wall itself will prevent erosion because there's not a steep slope. It's a wall. So there will be no erosion issues on the back side of that wall.
Okay, there's no wall back here, that's what you said.
Yes, ma'am. There's a wall back there.
Okay.
The only place there's not a wall is going across that wetland. And the reason there's not a wall there is, well, two reasons. One, there's wetland, but so from Wallace Pump and just in this area, this wetland through the ditch, and I don't know how filled it is. Right, I haven't been out there today, so I haven't looked at what type of silt fence has been done. But the idea and the reason we moved the retaining wall 5 feet off the property was to allow a ditch to go to the city ditch. So because Wallace Pump is, feet off the property line on that side. So there's not much room for him to do any kind of drainage for himself there. So we purposely, the developer at my recommendation, decided to move that retaining wall off the property line to allow us to put a ditch on our side to let that water flow to the roadside swell.
So on the plan, it did not look like there was any kind of retaining wall on this side, on the back side of these last two buildings, near the turnaround.
So it goes all the way past those and it ends at just north of the pond.
Okay.
On the east side, the west side stops at the back of the buildings because that grade is pretty similar. It's not a real steep slope on the west side of the pond.
Lance, is there any future plans or intent to build behind this development to further it out?
Not at all.
So would the developer be willing to designate that as a never build on area as part of this?
That would be a question for the developer. I wouldn't be able to answer that for him.
I understand.
I don't know if David has any input on that, but probably not being that it hadn't been brought up in the past to the developer.
Okay.
Lance, you plan to have a landscape plan?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the landscape plan that's required. So we'll have, well, it's not required for the development order, but we will have a registered landscape architect do the landscape plan. And that will include the buffers in that 18 to 19 foot that we have between the buildings and the property line.
And tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, you build up 3 feet. Okay, then you put your pads down, your pillars and pilings, and then you go up. Okay, from the floor of your, let's say, drive up to midway, basically, of your roof. That's the height, right?
Well, no. Well, that's the height of your building, but that's not how the maximum height is measured. So the maximum height in this case, you're in a shaded X floodal. The elevation, I think, is either 13 or 14, the shaded X elevation. So putting it on pilings, you would go 1.5 foot above that elevation So that's 14 would be 15.5 foot elevation, and then your maximum height will start from there.
So you're coming up and then your maximum height. So these technically, if you have them 3 foot build up already, 2 or 3 of soil, and then you're going, these could potentially be technically from where it is right now to the top could be more than 48 feet.
To the ridge, it could be. I don't think it will be, but it could be.
So ground level, I forget the 3 feet, but ground level up, how tall is it going to be?
Well, let's see. So slab elevation 14.52. Let me get the shaded elevation here. I'll write it on the backside. So we are shaded X elevation 14. So our slab is at 14.5. The height starts from one. I say our slab. One of the slabs is at 14.5. There's multiple different slab elevations. It ranges from 14.5 to, but they're all pretty close to 14.3. So let's say 14.5, and then your maximum height would start from 15.5. So 49 feet to the meter's height would be as high as you can go from the slab.
Say that again. From the slab to the main roof height.
The maximum you can go is 49 feet.
Okay.
I thought it was 48 foot.
Well, it's 48 measured from the datum that you have to measure from. In this case, that datum is 1.5 feet above the shaded X elevation.
And parking?
Parking, there's plenty of parking. So we've got 2 spaces out in front of each unit to park, and the entire ground level is open. So, I mean, other than stairwells and stuff, but there's parking underneath the structure as well.
Excuse me, Lance. Would you say again?
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
To close the public meeting. Okay. Do you have another?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Question, is this property currently zoned commercial?
Is it? That entire area is.
And I think that's just something we're gonna have to keep in mind for the future. I mean, we hired a consultant, this, it shouldn't prevent this from moving forward in that sense only, but we have been advised that we have an insufficient amount of commercial property in Mexico Beach. We were told by the consultant that we hired that a healthy, thriving community is typically 85% residential, 15% commercial. In Mexico Beach was 95% residential, 5% commercial, because we've allowed residences to be built in commercial areas. So all I'm saying is that down the road, when someone does at some point want to consider rezoning from residential to commercial, we're probably going to need to look favorably on that or take a hard look at it. Otherwise, there's not going to be a place to build a larger grocery store or a restaurant that's not a food truck or a doctor's office or a putt-putt golf course. There needs to be places for people to do things and not just live in dwellings.
Yeah, if you look at the map behind you, that red area on the far right corner of the city limits, that's the commercial area that this falls into, and the red area is commercial.
Yeah, I can see the color of that. It's just every time you displace potential commercial property, you can't.
Yeah, I was just trying to point out to you that entire area there is designated zone commercial.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. You know, I'm going to say I still am worried about the buildup of such an area that you're enclosing in this quote retaining wall, because again, stormwater and the floodplain are 2 separate issues. And we tend, it's hard to keep them separate, but it bothers me because that area over there is subject to flooding all the time. my concern is that we're putting fill where it shouldn't be put, and we're taking volume out of our floodplain, and we keep on doing it, and it's not gonna get any better. So I have concerns about that, and understanding the difference between stormwater and floodplain and what they do. So.
No, actually, I don't see that we have any recourse for approving this development. Do you have any?
So I just want to clarify, our scope is to make a recommendation. We're not
Right.
approving and
Well,
making
excuse me,
recommendations. Yeah,
recommendation.
I just want to be clear on that.
I understand.
Okay, so do we have a plan?
Recommendation.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second?
Second.
Call roll?
Dr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay,
Yes?
Mr. Kerrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Saunders,
Yes.
Mr. Linderman.
No.
Okay.
So I would like to make a recommendation that we go back and we look at our wetlands and see what we're doing for our city by keep allowing development to continue coming in here and doing any wetlands. Is there any legal points? I mean,
Guys, all the recommendations in terms of how the cars and how they are.
it's about
Should put that
health.
on the agenda for next time or something.
It's about health of our, not only of our, wildlife,
So,
or
when you say the processes with everything more condensed.
So that is the good news. So we worked with the Legal Shield that worked us combine our current LDC with all of the ordinances and resolutions that have been passed since 2019. And it'll be one searchable file. We messaged them today to see what the status was. I should have it back any day now. So once we have that workable file, we can give back to you guys to possibly review, make recommendations to the council if there's something going forward. So that's going to help us a lot to have everything in one spot. August the 19th is way too far to have to search. I have to search for like 3 different places to find it, just like you do. So,
Well, one of the things that I think we've got to address is the time frame.
sure.
We don't have enough time, we got this on Friday afternoon. And, the other thing is the errors that we found here. Obviously, we're not having enough time to review, either for you guys or for us. And I think we need to put some hard time frames in there, to say, if you want something on this agenda, it needs to be done and turned in to the city on the 20th of the month, so we're ready.
You're correct, we did do that. We have a schedule that we go by, about letters that have to go out and items for the agendas. I'm not making any exceptions for anything that comes in late. We don't have time to review, so that'll help us going forward. This was pushed from the last one, yes, ma'am.
We need to have those things in place, and even Lance pointed out that it would help them if they knew we had a deadline of when it's got to be done, so that we have time to review it, so that we don't have these discrepancies.
And I know
I understand.
other cities, I've went on, done some research, how do they really conduct their deadlines? And a lot of them will say it has to be in the middle of the month.
We have that, it's all in there. It's like the 16th or 13th, one of those 2 dates. And it's on our website, and we're going to continue to enforce that forward. You guys, we talked about that at the last meeting, and I reestablished that calendar, so we're going forward with that.
For this particular development, I would like, when you talk with the developers, that they consider changing the name to something that's not the villas at Mexico Beach when there's a villas of Mexico Beach.
I wrote that down as a recommendation here, along with a couple of things that you guys mentioned earlier.
Okay.
But you do understand our wetland situation. Is there anything that we can change with this? I mean, I know people property. And they should be able to mitigate their wetlands, I guess. But for instance, like this place behind Gulf Foods that came in, filled it in, nobody knew about it until after it was filled in, and it has not been remediated at all. I mean, aren't they legally supposed to come in and do that?
Yeah, it's more of a DEP type of work.
Okay.
So,
So the city's not moving forward to make sure that people that do stuff like that?
so I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like it may be a way we didn't discuss this, but I personally, I'm concerned about the loss of wetlands within the city of Mexico Beach, because not only is that where stormwater goes, but it's where it loses its identity. It washes away nutrients, it washes away car soap, it washes away poisons from, those sort of things. And as we develop to the west, and everything goes into Salt Creek from the St. Joe area, and they do have stormwater detention plans in their development. I think within our scope of what we can do, because we as a board, I don't think have any responsibility. It's not within our scope. I'm looking at the LDC, and I did this because I wanted to understand what our job is here. And it spells it out in in Article 7. There are 6 major areas that we are to review for compliance with the Land Development Code, the Comprehensive Plan, and other regulations. And that is the scope. That doesn't mean we probably can't bring other things to the council. But so having said all that, I believe that I would like to take on looking at the wetland issue and making recommendations to the council. I will tell you what I have learned in my studies, my research is, we have no wetland mitigation bank in Mexico Beach. And we would have to establish one, and that's a whole nother can of worms. And because it irritates me, like you, obviously, that when they build on wetlands, we don't get any of that mitigation benefits. Yeah, and that seems wrong. I did talk to the mitigation bank representative at the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and she told me that when it goes into the aquifer, it goes into other places. So there is a benefit to the state and the region, but all I see is us losing those things. And like many things, if you looked at the stormwater management study that was done in 2015, prior to the hurricane, there were some recommendations, and I think many have not been followed. But it's a matter of money. It's resources.
Excuse me, can we wrap up the meeting?
Yeah.
On Facebook and everything, you guys can sit here all night.
Yeah, okay.
Discuss whatever you want to discuss.
Would you like to have this item on the upcoming agenda, or what would you like to see?
I think we should have it on the coming agenda. And, again, it's a great concern of mine, and I think that we really need to get a grip on it. So I would put it as the agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have a,
Oftentimes in these meetings, you have the opportunity to ask just other businesses that
Right.
government not
That's what
allow
this
that
is.
tonight? Or can we ask another question?
That's what I thought this was. That's my
That's-
guess.
Well, I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about water runoff, and in developing the canal right now, do we have a pump out station at the canal? Do you know, Doug, or is this for boats to discharge sewage?
We don't have anything specific for that. I mean, we have
Yes.
we don't let people stay overnight. We don't let people, can't just sleep on them and things like that. So we don't have a relief.
But the larger boats that are increasingly on our canal do have toilets on. And this is just some information you can take a look at, but this comes from Florida State University. And the Clean Vessel Act of 1992, there's now the Florida Department of Environmental Protection has awarded millions of dollars in CVA grants, creating more than 500 pump out facilities throughout the state. They're giving you money to do this. And it says that untreated discharge from one weekend boater puts the same amount of bacterial pollution into the water as the treated sewage of 10,000 people. And we fish, we eat crabs in those waters. There's just not a reason for toilets to dump into the canal if we're doing things about it.
Yeah, would I be able to keep that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sure, I'll get it from you. So I can look into that. I appreciate that information.
Yep.
I definitely can look into that and see what else we can do to help out with that situation. And then I will also have the wetland item on the coming agenda.
Okay. Do I have a
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?